flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm a little uncoordinated here. I just had a flash BIOS update and I'm kind of freaking out here. So, okay.
Gotcha.
Well, good evening, everyone. Why don't we just get the administrative items out of the way? Why don't we begin with the minutes from the April 6th session? I quickly skimmed them, so I'll be candid. I did not give it the usual edit that I normally do.
I've got a couple.
Go right ahead.
Minor, very minor. Section 4, second line, Ms. Emmerich said that she is said to hear. Sad, I think.
Yep.
Let's see. Page 3. Below the 7:50 PM, so it's in the Scott Blair, Jamie Gittler section, first paragraph under that heading. Also present on the meet co-chairman, I think just meeting. I said really minor. Did you find that, Janelle?
Yep.
Okay, and the last under section 7, first paragraph under section 7, which is page 5. And I may have said it either way, I guess, but holy cow, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
What?
12 lines down.
What page was this? Oh, under
Page-
section 7.
Section 7 on page 5.
Okay. Okay.
12 lines down, starts with look.
Yep.
The sentence, co-chairman Dibble feels that the only thing that the board could validate is to look at the billing and acknowledge that the number of hours look possible. I'm thinking, I was thinking plausible,
Okay.
considering the amount of involvement.
Okay.
I think that's it, just little nits.
Anyone else?
Thorough as usual.
Yep, look good.
Yeah, I was a little bit late. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries, Nick. How are you?
Good. You guys catch the one where first page, second to last paragraph where it says Heidi Emmerich said that she is said?
Ed, and
Yeah.
it should be sad. We got it. Thanks, Nick.
Just informational, Ed Cahill is not planning to join unless he's absolutely needed tonight, so. We'll say he's on call.
Hope he's okay.
No, he's fine. He's fine.
Okay, all right, it's 7:04. I don't believe we have any other administrative items. Again, I
Do
know
we
you said
have
this.
Make a
Go ahead.
motion.
Okay, do we have a motion on the minutes?
Oh, yeah, well, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with the suggested edits.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Ed Cahill's absent. Minutes
Aye.
are approved.
Yeah, I
So again, I
think
just wanna-
the
Go
only
ahead.
thing I'll say to fill time is maybe a brief discussion. Sailor Mill, I don't believe that we've received the traffic study or any further information, right?
Right, we've received no further feedback from the applicant pertaining to the items CT Mail captured in their February 24th letter. They've acknowledged that they're in process, but outside of that, nothing.
Yep.
And Janelle, they received all the public comment letters that were submitted to us. You sent them those?
I did.
Okay. Great. Do you know
So
if they
again-
found any, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dave. Do you know if they found any candidates for the empty position on the board? Have they been interviewing?
On that, so I've not received any update from our town board. I did suggest a volunteer, and she did show an interest initially, but due to unfortunate family events, is not able to. So I guess I would just put that out there, that if you do know someone in the community that, you know, would like to contribute and has the time, you know, maybe they could join a meeting if they're unsure of themselves. I know Jim Safranco, there was a notice out on the website to have them in, I think, by the 18th or so, but I'm sure
Yeah,
they'll-
I don't know if David Edinger or Victoria have any further information being on the board.
I do know that I received one email, but she had already mentioned that she had submitted her letter of interest to Mr. Safranco already. So, and I just told her that that's where it should be sent. So,
I believe they've gotten 2 so far.
That's correct.
excellent.
Victoria, do you know when the plan would be to act on those 2 or?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Uh,
when
I
when
think
is,
Talking at the next meeting.
I think we're talking about it at the town board meeting next week.
okay, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Not that you will select someone, but
No,
at least it's on the agenda, it sounds
oh,
like.
absolutely it is.
And if I may, I mean, just from my perspective, I think there's importance and the, you know, the gift of diversity and of perspective, you know, would be welcomed, right? So if we can have our board reflect our community, I think, you know, David and Victoria, if that could be conveyed to the board, I just think that would be beneficial to us.
That will be part of the discussion for sure.
Great.
Well said, Dave.
You know, I just want to echo Heidi, something you said at the last meeting, and I'll be candid, I was pretty distracted at the beginning of the last meeting. But in the moment that we have here, I would like to just say again, on the record, a genuine heartfelt thank you to Helene Grant for her 13 years of service. And I know we were chuckling about the chocolate cakes and, you know, just how great of a person she is, but, you know, she put a ton of effort into not only attending all of the town board meetings, and I don't think she missed more than 4 over 13 years. But it's also worth noting that she was our liaison to the Ulster County Planning Board for almost as many years. So just a tremendous contribution of her personal time to the community and you know, the willingness to help out. So I just want the record to reflect that. And I know my colleagues here will agree with me, but just wanted to make that shout out to Helene Grant and thank her very much.
Absolutely.
So with that, we've got about a minute and a half until the SP 820 Colin LaFleche, 73 McMillan Road in West Showcan. I'll acknowledge for those in the attendance, we have received a series of emails or letters from the community. So Janelle, thank you for passing those along. They have been read, at least by myself, and I'm sure by my colleagues. And, you know, once we start the public hearing, I guess we can speak to it in further detail. But we are appreciative of the information you've shared, and we are sensitive to the series of sensitivities surrounding this.
Janelle, I just want to make sure I'm sharing the most recent map. I know we've had a couple revisions. Is this one that we're looking at now, the most recent?
Looks like it.
yes,
Okay.
looks good.
Tim, are you able to zoom a little bit or not?
Yeah.
I know it's hard. So David, if you would just, I guess, let's just unmute, please, Mr. Ettinger, if you could just unmute everyone. It's 7:10 on Tuesday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you if you have children. Or if not, maybe you're just a Star Wars fan.
Children don't get it.
That's right.
That's true. Depending on the age, yeah.
That's right, that's right. Well, I guess I'm a child. So I'll open the public hearing for SP 8-20 Colin LaFleche of 73 McMillan Road in West Shokan, New York. The intent is to establish 2 platform camping sites and 1 outhouse on a 53.8 acres of land. Mr. LaFleche, I believe, is in attendance. I thought I saw it earlier. No, maybe not.
I hope so,
I could have sworn I saw it.
or someone representing him.
Well, he certainly knew about it. I reminded him and he said he was ready.
All right, well, I think we can still proceed with comments and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's just we usually have the applicant give a brief description of what they're doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Well, the public hearing is open, the comment period. And is there anyone in attendance who would like to ask a question or speak? As my co-chair just mentioned, Steve, typically the applicant represents themselves. We can certainly answer questions and describe it as we know it. But if there are questions we can't answer, we would ask for your patience. And if the applicant doesn't show, we will suspend until the next opportunity.
I have a question, if you don't
Sure.
mind. It's
Sure, just please your
Rothkopf.
name, just your name and your address, please, for the record.
Let's see. Wendy Rothkopf. And I live very close by to this proposed site, actually on 28A, right around the corner from McMillan Road. So I have questions and concerns. I wish that Colin Flesch was there, but in any case, Dave, this brings up the question, this proposal, as the short paragraph says, that they're renting this nightly. That brings up the question of a series of strangers. I don't know what the limitation is per tent. These are really large tents. I don't know how many people are coming. I don't know if they're allowed to have guests. It's a lot of people with a lot of turnover coming into a very private area. And I think there's got to be some kind of limitation on the rental periods. Could they be a week-long minimum so you don't have a huge turnover of people coming in? The whole idea of having a series of people who aren't invested in the area in particular is a little bit disturbing to me, even though I realize that everybody wants to maximize their property and the area is kind of on fire. But all that being said, do you have any ideas about, or have you had a discussion about who can come, how long they can stay, whether or not they can invite 30 people to sit around the campfire, which also seems dangerous to me.
Yep.
Heavily
Miss-
area.
So I'm sorry, Ms. Rothkopf. All excellent questions. They're actually inquiries that this board has discussed with the applicant himself. Tim, thank you for sharing this perfect document, and we can certainly, I thought we had posted this to the town site, but we can certainly share this with you. So to your many good questions, no, the campers are not allowed to have guests. They are limited to 1 vehicle and 2 adults and 2 children per tent. So max would be 8 people at the 2 sites. You described them as large tents. These are 2 platforms, and the dimensions, as you can see on top, are 30 feet by 22 by 2 feet off the ground.
Right.
So I'm not going to say they're small.
They're not small. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I just didn't, I guess I just wanted to govern it in terms of, and I'm not defending the applicant. This isn't glamping in terms of huge circus tents is really kind of my barometer. It's just more of a platform to put a primitive tent on top of.
right, if I could just respond,
Please.
I was or am in the travel business. So I know exactly what glamping is, and it has nothing to do with the size of the property. It's all about the appointments in it. So that most actually glamping sites, even in Africa, places like that, or around the world, are way smaller than that, but are very elegantly appointed. So it has nothing to do with size. It really has to do with another set of decisions. But I'm happy to hear that there's a limitation, because to me, that's a really large tent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
it's-
my
I
house
don't
is
know.
that size.
I wish Mr. LaFleche were here because I don't know that the tent is going to span the entire platform. I think the tent will be partially covering the platform, and then they'll have perhaps other amenities, as you point out. But one of the things they did make clear was that, their plan is for this to be rustic, as in there will be no electricity in the tents, no running water in the tents, other than, flashlights and a bottle of water if you bring it with you. So it probably falls a little short of glamping, at least in some people's views, but
Right.
that's where they stand.
Mhm.
And to your comments around strangers and some of the letters, in the emails that were written to the board prior to this public hearing, traffic, the transient, if you will, people coming in and out. So there is going to be a formal vetting process. And again, if Mr. Flesh was here, he could speak to it. But similar to an Airbnb, he did commit that there would be 2 specific engines that he would be using that would pre-clear or approve the campers.
That's
And that,
Hip Camp
go
and Airbnb Day.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't see it in this letter. Does anyone else recall, or is it in the minutes? Was there a minimum? Like, I thought it wasn't going to be, there was a minimum is what I'm saying. Wasn't there a minimum of a certain number of days a camper had to rent, or am I wrong there?
I don't remember that.
I don't
Okay.
recall that either, but it's a very good question.
Okay.
Yes,
let's
I mean,
definitely-
certainly they're expecting to be more booked over the weekends than during the week, but I don't recall a minimum number of nights.
Is there some issue with them using the town pool?
They typically can't use, visitors can't use the town pool unless at this point, I believe they pay a fee, and the town board could maybe talk more about that, but that was instituted recently.
One of the other issues for me in particular is that there's no, we all kind of have a freedom of access between properties, but there's no barrier between Ron's land next to me and their land. So I just don't want to have the feeling that a bunch of strangers are walking on my property.
Yeah, I don't know if it's documented here, and maybe it should be, but certainly Mr. LaFleche stated that they don't want the guests wandering even across the whole of their property, only in the camping area. So the areas they're allowed will be very clearly delineated. And
Well, good. Mr. LaFleche is joining, by the way.
oh, great! So he can speak to this
Yeah,
as
Miss, and
soon as he
since
gets
Tim,
caught up.
yeah, Miss Rothkopf, could you just, with Tim, our colleague here, he's controlling the shared screen. Could you just point to where you live, if you don't mind, on the map, or direct?
It's Route 28A, so you got to go up, I guess.
Yeah. Put on some glasses.
Hi, everybody. I'm very sorry about that. I was distracted stacking firewood.
Well, getting an early start on it.
Well,
well-
that's for us, but yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so Mr. LaFleche, no worries, and thank you for joining. We
So,
have Ms. Rothkopf asking a few questions, and
Yeah.
she's asked about,
You can call me Wendy, that's fine. You don't have.
oh,
to.
Wendy, okay. I wanted to know, it's a good question. Is there a minimum on the number of nights that you're requesting a camper reserve the campsite?
We had not considered doing that.
It
Not at the
really-
moment.
It prevents a certain kind of person from renting and will also control the amount of new people to the area. Hi, I'm your neighbor who we haven't met.
Hi, Wendy.
I'm kind of and back on the side of I'm on the other side of Ron Leonard's property.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're definitely sensitive to that. We don't want this to have a huge impact on traffic and the number of people that are in the area all the time. I think part of what we can do because of COVID, we will be spacing out all of the bookings in the near term. So, sorry. So we would have to leave 72 hours between each booking for the foreseeable future. I don't know what the current legal requirements are. But the point being that I think in the beginning, that lower volume will give us a sense of how difficult or not a high volume of people would be, I guess. If that makes sense.
I mean, on Airbnb, there's no people. The turnover is same day very often, as long as they have the right cleaning procedures in place. So I think it's more the amount of days that people book that has a greater impact on that turnover than leaving a day's space in the middle. I think from experience, having done that at other locations.
Mhm. Yeah, that may be true. Anna, my partner who lives here with me, she has Airbnb her apartment in the past. I have not done it myself, so she knows it a little bit better than I do. But I would say that we don't want to be. We're not trying to be. We're not going into the business of being hoteliers. So the prospect of having to turn over the tents every single day for 6 months of the year is not really appealing. So I would say, I don't know if I can give you a definitive answer on what the minimum might be, but I can see the benefit of that, certainly. And I guess
fly with it, which is really interesting. If you set that minimum, they really go, okay, well, rent it for 3 nights.
right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess I'm reluctant to commit to it, but I also hear you on that advice. And yeah, I don't see why we would necessarily be opposed to that fundamentally.
Mhm.
Good discussions. Is there anyone else in the public who has a comment or a question with respect to this?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, Mr. Merkel?
Yeah, hi. Rob Merkel here from 42 McMillan Road. How you doing?
Hi, Rob.
All right. How's things?
Very busy, but not so bad. How are you?
At least it's busy.
Yeah.
Hey, I was just wondering, I've been at least looking in on most of these meetings from back a few months. And I remember, I think the one that was last month or the month before, the board said that they were going to take a walkthrough tour of the property and look at the roads going up from McMillan as well as the other side, along with having the rescue squad, police and fire look up there for access to see if they have any issues getting their equipment up the driveways and whatnot, being that they're accordingly, supposedly, not going to be lit for any appreciable thing. So I was wondering if there was any outcome from the services, the fire, the police, and anybody going up there for this last time, including the board. What did they think of it?
Yep, so I'll speak first, and then maybe Stephen and anyone else on the board, and then Colin will certainly allow you to speak. So Mr. Merkel, we did have an on-site meeting. I don't recall the date, I apologize, but it wasn't too shortly after that you reflect. And if we could zoom into this map further, which I know we can't, most of the information that is right in the center here, so all the things about parking, garbage, limbs, and I'm literally going straight up the center column, if you will, culvert, these trees to be removed, the fire extinguishers, the 55-gallon, so all of those notes are the product of our fire chief or captain, Mr. Chris Winnie, the superintendent of highways, Mr. Brian Burns. Who else was there? Can you help me out, Steve? I'm trying to think.
Those two guys and us.
Yeah, I think it was just them and the board.
And the board,
Right.
okay. So
Yep.
they all did visit and they touched on the driveway permit, and you'll see that there's certain limbs on McMillan that they're asking to be removed on Broadhead, Broadhead Road. Yep.
Different property first.
So I guess I would say it was a productive visit. Mr. LaFleche was listened and has committed to acting upon all of the recommendations. And that really gave, rise to the enhancements that have been plotted on this map. So I don't know if anyone else from the board or Mr. LaFleche.
I think what was critical as part of the meeting was understanding what needed to be cleared and cleaned up for safety for the fire trucks and vehicles to get through there, any sort of emergency vehicles. And I think that Colin has a pretty good understanding of how clear and how high in width, that gravel drive or that, dirt road needs to be. And then the clearing for fire safety at the sites. I think that was a really important thing that we discussed. And it looks like that's being addressed. I mean, of course, we'll have to, at some point before, you first open up, make sure that's clear enough for those fire, campsites and things like that. But I think that we discussed that at length. And so that was very productive.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. If I may continue, can I?
Certainly.
Okay. About the only thing that really, I guess the major driveway or the major entrance for all the guests are going to be off Broadhead.
Correct.
It seems to be that's where the parking and service and emergency vehicle turnaround, which I guess will have to be made into that because it's pretty much overgrown. The thing I'm concerned about is that, you're looking at, 4 people, per platform. And it's not so much of what you got now, it's what I somewhat concerned about the future because, a tent platform that's 22 by 30 is bigger than my 2-car garage that I got in my house. And it seems to be that, if time goes on, I've looked up on Tent RR about, different properties that are doing similar things to what you're doing, Colin. And it seems like there's some out there that eventually they seem to get to be the all-inclusive type where they're doing the hot and cold running water, the fire ring, the bed, a big thing. There's one on Ohio Mountain that seems to have like everything, and they're charging a good amount of money. I'm kind of somewhat fearful that it's going to go in that direction because you've got these platforms that big now to expand into. And, this is, some of the ones that I see on Tent R&R where it's just a rough camping ground are like, $50 a night. Whereas I know that you're saying you're using this to try to add to your income coming in so you can eventually make the actual property a running farm. It doesn't seem like you will, for all the trouble you're going through, it seems like you're not going to really make all that much return on your money unless you go to one of these situations where you're starting to inclusivize a lot of things in there to make the price, to allow the price go up so that it's more, inherent that you can subsidize your income to, you know, instead of your $55, $75 a night, where it's more like $200-300 a night, or for a weekend, because you got the area to expand into a more of an inclusive and more luxurious type thing instead of, you know, staying with the rough camping. My fear is that it's going to go slowly but surely, that we're going to see a couple more things in front of the board saying, well, now that I did this, I think I'd like to do that. If this is, you know, not anywhere where you're going, then that seems to be my concern with one of the whole things, is that what is it going to, it's like somebody building a patio and has footings under it. What do you need footings for? Well, because later I'm going to put a building on it. So I was kind of going down this thing where, especially in this small area, I mean, it's a big property, but in this kind of secluded area, that it's going to go from, you know, one family with 4 people with a couple of cars to all of a sudden more people and then more cars. And then I don't know how you feel about generators. I don't know if there's going to be allowing to have, you know, standby generators when people come in and say, well, there's no lights here, so I want to do generators for some tent lights, my music, my charging my phone. It seems like it could snowball into something a lot bigger. And I don't know if your thought process is going that way.
It's definitely not. And we aren't going to allow generators. We aren't going to allow lights. We aren't going to allow music. I mean,
Yes, no ATVs.
no ATVs, none of that. Our initial application did have 2 additional
Yes.
primitive campsites on it. And we revised it, number one, because, you know, we had feedback from the neighbors that were concerned about the volume of people and the impact to the area and the property itself and all of those things, but also because, just in thinking more about it, we didn't want this to become a full-time commitment. We want to be focused on the farm. And I would say, please come by. We will be happy to show you what we've been doing with the property and putting up fencing and planting fruit trees and the point being that our focus really is on the farm when it comes to how to use the property. So there's nothing I can give you other than my word that we are not interested in turning this into a big campground, but that really is not our intention. We wanted to find what we considered to be essentially a temporary and reversible way of using the property that doesn't require much work to the property. You know, these areas are already pretty much cleared. You know, there's a little bit of work that we're going to have to do to the road, and we'll have to take down a couple of trees. But generally speaking, we pick these spots because they're open, and it will be pretty straightforward to implement. You know, the having the outhouse on the trailer means that we don't have to put in any kind of septic system. We don't have to do any digging, all of that. So yeah, we really don't, we're not going for that. And we're trying to find something that is minimally impactful. That said, I think part of why we decided to focus on the glamping platforms rather than the primitive campsites, even though they are a little bit more work, the hope is that it will make it more manageable, that we will have better control over how many people are showing up. I mean, aside from the rules that we will put in place, I think having primitive campsites would, I think, invite people to be more flexible about following the rules. And so our hope is that by making this at least a little more formalized, a little fancier, I guess, that it will make people think about it less as like, oh, this is a campground where we can just show up and do whatever we want, and more like, okay, we're spending a couple of nights basically next to this person's house in a nice canvas tent, you know, and we want to be respectful. So yeah, everything, the thinking behind everything that we're trying to do is to be minimally impactful to the property, to the neighbors, to make this low key as best we can.
Okay, well, your word is good. You know, your word is good. I have no reason to doubt you. So That kind of ends what I need to do. I guess you're saying with these two platforms, there's going to be no electricity for any of these people that may come.
Right.
Okay, so they'll have to bring their own lights and stuff like that, but it's going to be more battery operated than AC generated or throwing an extension to your house.
Right. We are definitely not going to be providing extension cords from the house. Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, thought I'd ask.
No. Listen, I appreciate the question and I appreciate the concern about it because we have not met and you haven't been here since we've been working on the property, so you haven't seen what we've been putting into the farm side of things. So anyway, so I fully understand where you're coming from, but like I said, it's not what we're trying to do.
But there was a question earlier about the size of the platforms, and I guess it's been kind of my impression that the tent is not going to cover the whole 30 by 22 space. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're expecting will be on the platform.
Yeah, so the tents are, I think, there's different companies that make different ones, and we had looked at different options, and we haven't bought them yet, obviously, but there's ones that have basically like a 19-foot diameter. And so having a little bit of extra room would allow us, because they have guide wires that then go down. So it will just allow us to set up the tent on the platform really well. And then in front of the tent, we can have like 2 chairs and a little table or something.
Oh, so you're supplying the tents?
Right, the tents will be set up.
Oh.
Beforehand, yeah. We're not gonna let people bring their own tents or anything like that. I mean, they'll be allowed to bring sleeping bags and blankets maybe, but no, the tents will be there.
Are the
Are you providing bedding as well, meaning the bed? And
yeah, I think so. I mean,
I guess I kind of assumed that you were, given it's kind of leaning in the primitive versus glamping, it's leaning more toward glamping.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I think, yeah, we would provide, a mattress or a futon and a nice wool blanket or something.
okay.
I guess these platforms are going to just be on, short poles, being they're only 2 feet up. They're not, are they going to be on, cement footings and things?
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep them as low to the ground as they can be reasonably, and either pouring, very like just using the form tube footings, or just staking them in a bunch of spots. I haven't exactly decided the solution yet, but again, the hope is to make it so we're not having to like pour a ton of concrete.
To say if you are going down, good luck getting through that rock, getting down to 42 inches.
Yeah, well, we've put in I think 90 fence posts over the past 2 weeks, so I'm familiar with that problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, good beneficial dialogue. And there's, Wendy, you asked about the fire ring. So that's where the fire department, so there will be steel fire rings. And again, this is a little small on your screen, but very defined areas for small campfires within proximity of the 55 gallons of water. So I don't know if anyone else has that question or another one. And just in the term,
I was going to suggest that a better solution might be 1 drum at each campsite near the fire ring, because I can see people, if they're hauling pails of water or something, are going to be less likely to completely extinguish the fire. If there's a 55-gallon drum very near or relatively close to the fire ring, it's an easier task, and you're more likely to be sure the fire gets put out. So I know that didn't come up before, but it's a thought.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In terms of people bringing in food and the attraction for animals, are those tent openings secure? Is there any concern about meeting a bear in the middle of the night here? I mean, you've got people with garbage? I see small bear-proof garbage receptacle, but are there limitations of what food people can bring in? And is there a concern about man-eating wild animal? Or not, I don't know.
Well, what we have laid out in the rules that we had put together was that any food or really anything with a scent, I mean, the general rules for bear safety is anything with a scent needs to either be in a vehicle or in some kind of bear-proof container. I think the people that are coming to this campsite will probably not have like a backpacking bear-proof container. So, but yeah, we would tell people that they need to leave anything in their car or it needs to go in the garbage. I mean, bears are around, certainly. So
I mean, people think they know
Yeah,
what to do, and just over the years, when they come from out of the area, they don't really understand the whole animal situation, that they're popping out on the road, that they're really on the land. So probably for you, the more explicit you can be about those kinds of food issues, the better off you'll be, and safer they'll be.
yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
It's like a
And-
learning curve coming from the city to come
Yeah,
here.
yes, definitely.
And hopefully you won't have the problem, but bears will break into cars, locked or unlocked, if they once get used to the fact that there's going to be food there. So something to watch, I think. Just I would really caution people to secure. In fact, you may want to provide some sort of safe place to stash stuff. I don't know.
Like like the bear boxes that you see at campgrounds.
Yeah.
I would imagine they have them around here.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I don't, it all comes down to time and place. I don't know how many active bears you've got in your neighborhood this week, this month, this year, but
We have,
yeah.
I'm on a bear route. They just traverse the back of the property.
Yep.
It's like, hi.
Yeah, they're definitely around because we have tons and tons of wild blueberries. So they are a presence, certainly, and it's something that we will take seriously and advise people to take seriously.
Well, do these tents have flaps or doors, or what are they? Glamping runs such a range of secure doors to other things. Are these just open tents? I'm not quite.
The ones that we had been looking at have basically a zippered canvas door. That the whole tent is canvas with like a central pole and then guide wires, and then there's windows and doors, one door or two doors that have zippers to open and close.
I have a question regarding gray water disposal.
Yeah.
And the 55-gallon drum of non-potable water that you're going to have on the property, and how basically there's a lot of water where you are. There's some wetlands there, as well as a small stream that feeds into a trout stream. And, the potential for having, say, 4 people in each tent every day is a lot of gray water. And how is that being handled?
Well, what we were going to follow and tell people to follow was the standards for, in any state park or national park or anything, where any gray water has to be scattered at least 150 feet from any water source, and at least 150 feet from any campsite. So they would have to, walk away from where the tents are to scatter it. That I think is as good of an approach as we can do short of putting in some kind of plumbing system. I think.
No, I have another question. Colin, could you make products available for them to use if this were the case? So that we knew that what they were actually dumping wasn't going to be leaching
like
into
biodegradable
groundwater
soap
or,
something.
Dr. Bronner's.
Yeah.
Something a little friendly. That's our biggest concern. There's a lot going on over there, and especially in the area where you're.
In Pennsylvania state parks, it's illegal to dump dishwater in the campgrounds. And a lot of the New York State campgrounds are moving to dedicated dishwashing stations.
Yeah.
We were in a campsite in the Adirondacks last fall where they had a complete building dedicated for dealing with the gray water
Dishwater,
situation.
yeah.
And this is upslope from wetlands and a class 1B trout stream with endangered, protected fishes.
Yeah.
So there's, when you run the gallonage, it can add up pretty quick. We've got thin soil here. Clay is not far. When it rains hard, the water
just
runs right
just
across
runs
the top
off.
of the ground. And, I can just see how this water is going to end up in the stream.
Yeah, I hear that. So I like the idea of having biodegradable products there that people can use. And
You still don't have a way to control the gallons that are being, how often, if you have a 55-gallon barrel, is that always going to be full and available, and how much water? It's hard to tell how much water is actually going to be used, what the usage is going to be. The other thing that you mentioned, Colin, which I found interesting, was you said something about a reversible permit. I mean, I understand about the farm, but you also, did I hear you correctly when you said you were looking for something more like a reversible, something that would be a reversible permit once you get the farm up and running?
well, I wasn't thinking that in terms of the permit necessarily, just in terms of like long-term, over the next 20 years, do we still want to be having these tents up? And I think at the moment our thinking is no. So I was thinking reversible in terms of we can have them up for some number of years and then easily take them down and take the platforms down, and you won't be able to really tell that they were ever there, basically.
Right.
I hear what you're saying on the water, and I guess the truth is we don't know how many people are going to be cooking. I mean, again, I think emphasizing the glamping aspect of it will invite less usage of the fires as for cooking. I think it's more likely that people will be here who are eating out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I assume you're not planning to provide, dishes and pots and pans.
No. And I, in a way, I sort of feel like having a really built out dedicated dishwashing system kind of invites people to be sloppier in a way. But I don't know. I would say I'd be open to thinking about a way to, I don't know, somehow trap some of the gray water. I don't know how to do that really. That would be.
I'm wondering if a partial solution, at least I'll say for hand washing, is to have the hand washing station attached to your, as part of the outhouse trailer where it just drains into the folding tank.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So
that would not, I mean, that would work legit technically, if we had a drain for dish gray water, but it would mean the tank would fill up very quickly. So I think we would just have to see, like, does that mean that the tank is going to have to get pumped every 3 days or something like that?
yeah, or I guess my thought was just a hand wash station versus
Right.
dishwashing.
Yeah. I'm
right,
just,
so So
I'm-
you fill a tank, up in the air a little bit and the gravity feeds into a sink and they can wash their hands and
Yeah. But I think what Sally's concerned more about is bits of food that are getting scattered and
Yeah.
so,
and the chemicals, I presume, from the cleaning products.
right.
I have,
So-
yeah, I'm sorry. I had one other question. When you mentioned that because you think it's more of a glamping site, that people wouldn't be cooking outside or using that option, I would think the opposite. You would come up here for the open air and a fire and cooking something. Otherwise, you're just bringing, it seems to me, packaged food that doesn't seem very glamorous or fun. I don't know. It's my view. No.
Yeah, I know from some friends who are very into this kind of glamping thing that they tend to, if they're staying there for 3 nights, they'll make a campfire and cook one night and then they'll end up eating out the 2 other nights or something.
I think often the cooking ends up being a hot dog on a stick over the fire.
It's cooking.
I'm guessing that,
He's not gonna have a stove or appliances to cook on or pots, pans, dishes to eat, to prepare food with or eat with, so.
yeah, I'm guessing that they would have to bring their own stove in to cook with, correct?
Yeah, like a camp stove or,
Yeah, like a Coleman stove, like a propane type 2-burner.
Yeah, or our thought was that we would get the steel fire rings that have the built-in grate that you see at campgrounds.
right.
That flips over on top of the fire, basically.
I had a question of, as the way this project is drawn up, have you talked to any insurance underwriters? Is this insurable as it is drawn? I looked through the Tenter website and then they're very explicit saying that we don't carry insurance. It's up to the camp keeper to have all proper insurances, and that homeowner's insurance doesn't really cover these kind of situations. Have you looked into what insurance requirements are going to be?
I was on the phone with my insurance agent this afternoon, in fact. So there's 2 levels. One is that Hip Camp and Airbnb, I think we will probably lean towards Hip Camp, but for the sake of discussion, both of them have insurance on their side. So as a host, you are covered by their policy for, I think it's a $1 million policy for both of them. In addition to that, we would have to add a rider to our home insurance that would cover this. And this was actually something that I had spoken to the insurance agent about before we bought the property, when we were considering what if we wanted to possibly Airbnb one of the bedrooms. We ended up taking it off because we didn't end up doing that anyway. So it's a rider that we add to our policy, basically. But that is something that they would require, that we have that in place.
Yeah, $1 million really doesn't go that far anymore. I'm just thinking about a wildfire threat. You're 100 yards from a number of houses on Broadhead Road. We get some terrific winds coming out across the reservoir out of the northeast to the northwest. If a fire were to break out when these winds are going, it's going to push the flames quick. There's a Tenter website in Boyceville that they have wood stoves in their camps. So, wood stoves with spark arresters on smokestacks, and no campfires would be a huge way to alleviate fire threats. And wood stove inside, they could cook on that in there if they had to. I just don't see the It's awful close to some of those houses over there. 100 yards is for a fire to jump. That goes pretty quick.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to be starting wildfires.
One of the things that we notice when we go to state and national campgrounds too is the cleanliness. They just take any debris that could be causing any kind of a fire anywhere, and they're completely cleared from around the campsites.
Yeah.
And having a tent platform with a fire ring within a pretty close proximity. And like Chris said, we're over, for those that you don't know, we're over on McMillan. So our property abuts the Bert Liefeld's fields and Olson's fields here. And it's like a wind tunnel through here. It's really, it's always been a big concern of ours. And you can even see from the road how wooded your property is, Colin. So there's a lot of fuel over there. And that's one of our concerns. We have a few neighbors that we don't know if they would be able to get out quickly enough if something happened and got out of control.
Yeah. And when Chris and the board and everybody were here, that was something that we were talking about. And that was the impetus for taking down a couple of these trees and clearing up some of the low brush that's in these areas. Yeah, it's hard to.
We could also make a rule with wind advisory, it's a windy day, no fires.
Anna just said that we could also make a rule that when there's a wind advisory that we don't allow fires, or if it's a windy day that we don't allow fires.
Probably a good idea too if it's drought conditions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the state campgrounds are clear of debris because everybody goes to try to find as much stuff they can burn too.
I was thinking the same. Part of it is because people are looking for firewood to burn in there. So they scavenge all that
Well,
extra.
they're really good about raking every day. I have to admit, when they come through, all those campground employees go through and rake everything really well. So.
And another thing I would like to see is that no wheeled camping equipment be allowed on site.
Meaning?
Any type of wheeled camping equipment, vans, trucks, campers, none of it in the parking lot. We own a piece of property in Vermont in this situation. Happened to us where the adjoining landowner went for campsites. We now have 3 RVs parked behind our property every summer.
Our lakefront property.
In northern Vermont. And this was something that was totally kind of unexpected by the town when they improved his campsites. So I would really like to see some pretty strong wording in the way this permit, if it is to go. Some just to keep it clear what's allowable and what's not allowable.
Sure. I think my view is that the only camping allowed is in the tents, right?
But if somebody pulls in a camper van, what's to stop them from sleeping in the parking lot? There is
the property owners who are managing the sites, I would think. It's not, what's that?
They may and they may not. They may not even be aware of it. They're a couple, they're 100 yards away.
Well, they're going to I presume, probably greet their guests and check them in, and I would think anyway. I don't want to speak for you, Mr. LaFletch, but.
No, yeah, our plan is to be around and meet people and, check to make sure that no one's getting wild and breaking the rules. And I have no problem with, including language that RVs are not allowed, and they simply wouldn't fit in the parking area. So that That's sort of a no-brainer, I think.
That'd be great to see that.
Yeah. Sure.
So are there any other comments from the folks in the audience?
What was the name of the booking engine that you mentioned, Colin?
Hip Camp.
I'm sorry, aside from Airbnb.
Hip Camp.
What is it?
Hip Camp, HIPCAMP, which is basically, it's like Airbnb, but it's for people that just have property with either open property where people can set up a tent or pre-existing tents or different things like that. But it's just geared towards campsites.
Thanks, Colin, for clarifying. Any other follow-up comments or questions?
Yeah,
Okay,
I just got one for Colin, and this is that with all the money and all the time that you're going to be putting into this, buying tents, getting this all set up, you have any idea how long it's going to take to recoup all this before you start making something so you can, put it towards your eventual running of the farm?
Well, it depends a lot on how quickly I can get everything done if this were to get approved. But I don't think that we would recoup our costs within the first season, but the hope is that we would recoup them after a second season.
That's pretty telling. It's, yeah.
any other questions or comments?
Just for a few more minutes.
So I'll make a motion, board, that we suspend the public comment, open comment period of the public hearing. Can I
Nick
get
will
a second?
second. Nick will second.
Thank you, Nick. Okay. So David, if you're still with us, Dave Ettinger, if you could, I guess, mute the folks in the audience. So really good dialogue and input from the public. I'll just summarize what I heard in terms of, I think, things we need to consider here. So the first one, well, maybe not in any specific order, but so minimum number of nights was one concern that was addressed, trying to space out the bookings to decelerate the amount of traffic, if you will. Capturing and disposal proper gray water. Insurance, which I don't know that we can really speak to that. I'm not sure if that's within our purview, but we can discuss it as a team. Wildlife and specifically bears. And then no RVs. And I think we actually discussed that with Mr. LaFleche early on. And that if someone does show up in an RV, when he asked them to please park somewhere else, because you are allowed to park, I guess, on the streets, but maybe direct them to someplace else. And then the last one I heard is the fire restrictions. And I know Chris had a lot of dialogue when he was there with us. So I think the wind advisory and the drought, those restrictions are really smart. So those are 6 things.
Yeah, I think the National Weather Service does actually have the, the fire danger rating, right? So perhaps something keyed off of that, which is both wind and dryness.
Yeah, whenever you go to a state campsite, you see Smokey the Bear, right? With the,
Yep.
Yeah, with the flag. So those are 6 key items that I took away from that comment period. Or did I miss any?
Yeah, just the one about the no RVs, right? No
Yeah,
parking RVs.
I've got that as number 6. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's mainly no camping in no staying in the parking areas as well, because people can have rooftop tents and everything else on their cars as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that gets to kind of, I believe, the comment I made at the last meeting around, jokingly not knowing about the bottom of cars and catalytic converters, but we really don't want the parking area is literally supposed to be parking, idle, right? The cars aren't running. They're not being used for charging, to your point, Nick. If it's no sleeping in the car or whatever, right? It's literally parking.
Right.
And I think, Mr. LaFleche, that's how you described it, right? It's primitive, right? You're not looking to put blacktop down, just a little gravel. You're going to clean out some trees, but, park your car and get in the camp.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So board, so any other topics before we jump into maybe some open dialogue and having conversation with Mr. Flesh around some of these conditions? All right, well, what do we think about a minimum? I mean, we do have the ability board to ask the applicant to consider, or accept conditions in terms of a site plan approval. I will say just candidly again, that this has been one of my concerns about this is just the amount of strangers, new people, traffic, as we heard and read in the emails. I'll say I'm up in that neighborhood a lot. I was just up there 5 times in the last week. And there's really small children that live on that Broadhead Road. There just really are. And, I don't even want to go there, but, I think anything we could do to minimize the number of vehicles going up and down, especially folks who don't, I think Wendy made the comment, right? They don't know what they don't know. And, it's not really a posted speed. So, someone could be going way too fast and a deer pops out and whatever else. So I do think as a board, we should probably consider the minimums. I don't know what we can do about the gray water, nor the insurance or the bears. I mean, other than, good education, Mr. LaFleche, signage, really coaching and counseling your guests from the point of when the first time they look at your site and they clearly see it on either HipCamp or Airbnb, and you're just constantly putting that in front of them around, whatever you bring in, take out, gray water, they've really got to be, adhere to the regimen of disposing it as you articulated, or maybe you could put a barrel out and capture it, and then when the folks come to get the septic, maybe they pump that too. I mean, if you would consider that, that would be, to me, that would be the perfect, right? Because then it's no impact on the environment. The wildlife, again, I think that's signage and education, and people really need to get it. Maybe you have to make them watch a YouTube video, all joking aside, right? Of what, conditioning bears to know where their food is not a good scenario. The fire restrictions, I think Nick had a great one, or Steve as well, with the advisories from the Weather Service. And then the no RVs, I mean, that's just really you with just, you just zero tolerance, right? You've got to show up with a passenger vehicle, a pickup, a van, but it can't be an RV, and parking is parking. So I've just spoken for a few minutes. So you want to have some open dialogue on this board and maybe make some decisions, and then Mr. LaFleche's take on it.
I just based on your concern about the number of people coming and going, I don't know that making multiple nights changes too much in terms of the traffic, because people are still going to go out during the day, even if they're staying there multiple days, right? But in terms of the number of strangers, I guess it would cut that down. But I'm wondering, are there going to be cleaning fees, or that kind of thing that's associated? That's say a one-time charge per stay, because I think that tends to encourage longer stays. I know I did look at a property recently, and the price was $100 a night with a $200 cleaning fee. So obviously you weren't going to stay there one night. Unless you really like to pay lots of money, right? So I'm just curious, are there any other factors that would help, I'll say, drive, longer stays?
I mean, my cleaning fee when I used Airbnb was like $25. I think it's up to the person.
If someone's speaking, we can barely hear you.
And Anna's on a couch.
Sorry, I came late to the party. I was just saying, I used to Airbnb a while ago, and my cleaning fee was always like $30 or something. And that was just to, pay for whatever little things I was doing. It wasn't excessive. I mean, 200 seems like a lot.
Yeah, especially for.
It was. It was clear they didn't want people there short term, right?
Yeah.
That's what that amounted to. So.
Yeah, I guess what Steve is just suggesting is the formulation, right? So that it makes in ratio to your rent, right? That the cleaning maybe provokes additional evenings.
Yeah, I'm just looking for ideas other than just saying, people have to stay 2 or 3 nights, right?
Wasn't Wendy's concern also that the stays would be too long, I believe? Was that one of her concerns?
I didn't hear that, but.
Is Wendy still on?
Yeah, she's still on. Wendy, I'm just unmuting you, I think.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, the kind of the general rate for cleaning fees is $100, which covers, I mean, COVID is an intense cleaning situation. You need
Yeah.
a lot of products. You need someone who's willing to do it if you're not willing to do it. So it takes a bunch of time to clean that kind of area. I don't know what that would mean. There are no beds and you're not changing I don't know if you're changing linens and no dishes. So it's a little more minimal, but you still need green products if we're gonna adhere to having the water situation be mitigated.
So my initial thought was, I think that based on COVID stuff, that I think there needs to be a 72-hour period for germs and infectious airborne stuff to not be there anymore. So my initial thought was we were gonna, only be doing it, with like a 72-hour gap in between guests, so that we didn't have to do this extreme, air cleaning, whatever, full on sanitation process. Granted, we still will clean, but also I don't know how much Colin and I can keep up with guests coming in and out every single day, just realistically, and for our own sanity and our own quiet time. I mean, it's just, I personally didn't ever think we were going to have people here 24/7, even during our open, season.
Yeah.
So
I guess I would say I would be hesitant to require people to stay multiple nights as a general rule, because I think if someone wants to come up for one night, we'd be happy to have them. But I also think that courtesy of COVID and spacing these out in the beginning, I think we will have a good sense of what is manageable for us and what's realistic. And I think if it just is clear that, like Anna said, we don't want to be dealing with this on a daily level, then it just becomes a matter of us controlling the days that the sites are available to be booked, essentially, such that on HipCamp and Airbnb, we would say, okay, it's available for the weekend, but not during the week, or whatever it might be.
Thanks, Colin. So is there anybody else on the board that has a position or a comment on this?
I guess, in terms of, just thinking in terms of how you could put some limits in place that made sense. And I'm not saying I'm for this, but one thing that could be done is just basically to limit the number of camping days per season overall, right?
No, it's another way of looking at it. Yeah.
So
Then that wouldn't preclude somebody who's coming up on a Friday night and headed out somewhere to the Adirondacks or wherever the next day to be able to stop and hang out for a night. That's not a terrible idea. How would you calculate that, though?
Well, how does it get enforced, right? I think that's the other.
Well,
I
that's,
know, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I just know on Airbnb, or HipCamp as well, you can block off certain days. So if somebody, wanted it for like Wednesday to Saturday, then we could block it off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So we have time to let it air out, let it clean out. And then, block those days off on the calendar, making it unavailable for people to reserve it for those days. And in addition to that, I have some experience hosting with Airbnb. I know that in the past, it's been beneficial as a host to only allow people who have used the site before and not kind of rent it to people who are first time renters so that they understand the rules and regulations, because I found that when you have people that are doing this for the first time, you get a lot more curveballs and a lot more kind of unruly behavior. And you also, they get rated, your guests get rated every time that they have a booking. So you can look at those ratings. And if someone has, a 1-star rating, I don't think we would necessarily even allow them to stay here. We'd want people that are respectful, that are decent people that have ratings before, and not just strangers, popping up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's,
So
for me, that's important. Yeah.
would you be amenable to something, I'll say, that either limits the number of days or that, and I'll say enforces a break between campers from the,
I mean, I'm fine with, I'm happy to have a break in between campers just so we can clean and have peace of mind about COVID and just in general. I don't, if someone's only here for one night, it's a lot of work to completely clean and do that. If it's every night, someone changing over and over and over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the break also, I'll say, gives you, I'll say, a little reason to want multi-night campers. Right, you don't necessarily want to have a person stay one night and then 2 or 3 days off, and one night and 2 or 3 days off, right?
right.
Yeah.
So,
But in addition, I don't think we'd want someone here for a week or 2 weeks at a time. When we want peace and quiet, and we live, within earshot of these sites as well, and don't necessarily want people here constantly, living here
Yep.
in our backyard. So, yeah, I think there's a balance that we could strike, or even write up in the rules or some sort of thing that makes sense for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have the luxury of time to go through all of these items, but I guess, how does the board feel about the gray water? I think that's, I know in the rules, as Mr. LaFleche has outlined today, it's broadcasting it within certain distances of the area, 100 or 125. I guess, Mr. LaFleche, is there the opportunity to capture it in another barrel, and whoever's doing your portable commodes could also take that?
I don't really see why not. We would basically, I guess, just like, yeah, have a second 55-gallon barrel and have the hand washing station, like you said, Steve, just go into the holding tank. I don't really see why not, honestly.
It would encourage less rule breaking, because people are gonna rinse out their dishes or whatever they're gonna do. People aren't really great about following the rules when they're camping, because that's part of camping. So giving them something that helps them be a little bit, more sensitive to the surrounding ecosystem would be great. If it's feasible, if you could look into that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks, Heidi. Anyone else? Comments on that from the board? All right, so then the 4 remaining items: insurance, the wildlife bear, it could be anybody, right? Any rodents, whatever. The fire restrictions and the no RVs. To me, these are just common sense, due diligence, be compliant. Heidi, you're absolutely right. People are always gonna, they're looking to relax, right, too, and maybe they don't want to be in the rules scenario, but I don't know. I think Mr. LaFleche, that's just going to be up to you to, if you will, police, right, and govern and have appropriate signage and just a repeated message from, like I said earlier, from the time of inception right on through to the time they arrive and execute, their camping. Just letting them know, right, these are the rules, stick to them, because it could have consequences, right? So I don't know, anybody else have a different perspective on the board? Insurance,
agree.
wildlife, fire, or RVs, or anything like that?
I agree. I mean, if the applicants wish to, I'll say perhaps think about these some and say propose some additional points in terms of I'll say the house rules or what have you, and or the site plan. I think that would be probably ideal.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think everything else is common sense. I think that, as far as giving them signs for fire safety, I mean, food, I mean, you go to any campsite, people have got to know what they're doing with their food. They've got to know. And so I think those are all sort of basic camping
Yeah, it's
things.
really no different than you having a picnic table and grilling outside, right?
Mhm.
You need to
Right.
clean it up or you're gonna have a mess, so.
Right, and I guess the one thing I'll say is the reason we brought Chris Winnie there, right, is his expertise, and this isn't by any means the folks who spoke in the public, I'm not discounting what you said, but his perspective on the fire was that if it was contained within a ring and they cleaned up the underlying brush, that, Chris felt that was adequate to keep it safe with the
Yeah.
fire extinguishers in the water, so I have to trust his professional opinion. So Steve, I like your suggestion. So so Colin, and I think it's Ann, was it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you want to get this approved. You want to advance this and get it approved as quickly as you can. Out of respect for the public as well as yourselves, we would ask, if I heard you correctly, but if you could take a look, and I don't want to put, you certainly want to think this through, right? The minimum and the gray water. Because certainly, I know Mr. Markle asked you, how long you think this is going to be a going concern for you, and what's your ROIC, right? And your hurdle rate to get your investment back. I mean, those are things you have to think about. So I'm going to make the assumption that, why don't you take that as homework, the minimum number of nights in the gray water, maybe append your current conditions, and then, Janelle, I would respect, given, the amount of time we spent on this, and we don't want to delay them further, that they come back at the next meeting and, we look to close this out one last time. So Mr. LaFleche Colin and Ann, if you're okay with that, and if the board's okay, I would say we advance in that fashion, that, we ask them to come back, address those two items on their conditions, give them some time to think about it, be creative, and then come back on it's the 18th, yeah?
Yep.
Janelle? And then we look to evaluate the map, which I don't suspect will change all that much. Address the gray water and the minimum nights, and then, I don't really expect you to speak to the insurance, because that's really outside of our purview as a board, but, the wildlife, the fire, the no RVs, just, how you can address those in terms of things we've already mentioned. And then we look at, closing out the public hearing comment period, seeing if anyone wants to speak. We could certainly unsuspend it momentarily, and then move to next steps and resolution. So Steve, is that making sense? Heidi, Nick? Tim?
Yes, so you want to keep the public hearing open?
I think so.
Through the next meeting, and we'll, as you say, we can open it up for public comment briefly again.
Yeah, I'm only doing that in the spirit of being equitable, right? So this has been very amicable. I'm hearing people from the neighborhood say, I don't hear an outrage about this. I'm hearing neighbors being neighborly, and that's what we should do. And certainly when Ann and Colin come back, we give the public an opportunity to, Wendy or whomever, Mr. Merkel, who've been very vocal, Ms. Schetzel, and the Smiths, if they wanted to say something else.
Yep.
I think
Sounds
that's a great
good.
plan.
So Colin and Ann, I'm sure this is probably not the outcome you were predicting, but I think patience will pay off.
No, it's fine. And we want to be sensitive to everybody's concerns, and we don't want to rush this through. So
The last thing we want to do is start forest fires and contaminate streams. I mean, honestly, that would be a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
Totally. So I get that, and we're happy to amend stuff and put, stricter guidelines in place and make this more foolproof. So we get it.
Yeah, great. And I'll just close with this, right? So the emails really stressed, if you will, the traffic. And Steve, you make a valid point logically, right? If someone's there one night versus 3 nights, the traffic potentially could be the same, but I think it's more of just new people, right? So that was the big thing on that piece. So, okay, well, thank you.
Dave, can I make one more comment? I'm sorry, this is towards the end, but
Of course, yeah, sure, Nick.
with these, I just noticed this on the map, but the fire pits seem to be like right on the edge of the clearing areas. Shouldn't they be more centrally located? For fire risk and everything. I believe it's the red dot.
Yeah, the spots where we put the fire rings we tried to put them in places where they would be furthest away from trees. So the outline, is meant to sort of contain everything that constitutes the campsite. But like on tent I guess I would say the exact placement of the other trees on this map is not super precise, but like on tent platform number 2, for example, there are a number of really old, not that old, but tall and large pine trees right around the platform itself. So if we had the fire ring very close to the platform, we would have to take down a bunch of those trees. So by moving it further away from the platform, it's just in a spot that's already a little clearer. And those 4 trees that we would thin out or take down are just smaller and it's a little more manageable. That's all.
It's a good
I just
question.
Sorry, I just have one other final comment for you guys as you're thinking about putting together your very final documents for us for next week. Remember that site plans run with the land. So let's say something happens and you guys move next year, whoever buys your property has the opportunity to, use your site plan. It stays with the land. So keep those details in mind that maybe you guys want, things to be manageable for you and so that you can also go about your business and do other things. But somebody else might pick this up and go, woohoo, I've got, 2 campsites I can use or whatever. So think about those terms moving forward and make sure you kind of spell that out. You've already done a great job. You've been very, very thorough in giving us more, write up about the details of the sites, which is great. Just keep that in mind as you prepare your final documents.
Sure.
Thank you.
So great question and insight, Nick and Heidi. Anyone else on the board? Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion that we ask Colin and Ann to come back on our May 18th meeting. They'll be first on the agenda. Janelle, please.
Yeah.
And our intention is, we'll unsuspend the open comment period of the public hearing, just to give the opportunity for folks to ask questions again. And then we'll look for Mr. LaFleche at the same time, provide an end to provide an overview and with the intention to move this to a resolution vote.
Second.
Thank you, Steve, for seconding that. So have a great evening, Colin and Ann. Thank you very much for your patience. And for those in the public who spoke to this, thank you as well for your really for your collaboration and productive dialogue. It's refreshing.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time.
That's for sure. All right, so next on our agenda is 20-1 Johansson Kawatowski. So Mr. Ingram, you're on the line, yes? John, you out there? Oh, he's muted. Mr. Ettinger, can you unmute him? John, can you hear us?
You should be able to unmute.
Yeah.
Am I there?
Yep, you're there now.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I get to the applicants, and certainly David, we can get them to unmute as well. But John, I just had a concern with respect to the site plan that we've previously approved. I mean, is that currently in compliance with the zoning enforcement office? Your
I thought
office,
they basically backed right off and aren't going to use that at all. They're not going to have the big weddings. It's just small wedding if they have one there. They're not doing anything with the buses. All that has been backed right off.
well, that's not what's on paper, right? I mean, Steve, help me out here, but, so we
Well,
approved,
yeah, I
we
mean,
approved-
the net of it is the site plan that was put in place and the way, I'll say, the business has moved since the site plan was put in place seem to be two different things, right? So my view, the site plan was not complied with, so we either need to, I'll say, withdraw, nullify the current site plan or update it to be current. And then proceed with the discussion, or in concurrently proceed with the discussion regarding the subdivision.
and so Steve, very well articulated, and I would subscribe to that. So if we have a mismatch presently, then let's fix that first. Or if it's being abandoned, which we can certainly ask the applicants right now, but I need to be calibrated on that. So how does the rest of the board feel? And I recognize Tim and Nick and Heidi, you're at a significant disadvantage because you weren't present for it, but you kind of understand where Tim, Steve and I are coming from here.
David,
I'm recused, so I can't comment, but obviously Nick and Tim.
Oh, you're recused? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
David,
Because-
check with Johansson there. I think that the whole thing is basically null and void at this point from their change in their plan.
Okay, but before we ask that, but you're saying, but as we've approved it today, John, here's my question. As it was approved and is on paper today, has your office identified and validated that they're in compliance with the conditions that were set? Regardless of the business being abandoned, but that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that we approved a site plan and the applicants agreed to specific conditions. In my recent observations, it's not compliant to some of the things we asked for. Now, if your position is, well, that's because they've abandoned the business, then to Steve's comments that he stated perfectly, then we've got to straighten that out first.
Well, ask Chester what they're doing, but essentially none of the things that were approved in that site plan in 2018 apply now. It's got a different approach to the whole operation.
Okay, and then Heidi, you recused yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't state it earlier, but yes, I am recused because I work for the surveying company that provided some of the documents for this, 20-1, so I am out of this. I will take notes on behalf of the surveying company, but I will not make any comments otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess Nick and Tim, do you guys have any questions before we go to the applicants in terms of the dialogue we just had?
I don't totally follow it, to be honest with you, but it sounds like there's a lot of history here. No?
Yeah, let me give you the Dixie cup and I'll ask Steve to keep me honest, and I can do this, I think, fairly quickly. So the applicants have been hosting weddings on their property. Obviously, it's probably the most magnificent site in all of, not only Olive, but Ulster, and it's great, right? Well, what started out as, a cozy kind of ritual, just grew into a significant event, right? And just it gained scale and obviously created somewhat of a disruption to the neighborhood. So it really came down to, what is a secondary use that is subordinate to the primary use, right? Which is a restaurant, which is a residence. So we have a residence with an Airbnb, and then we had a secondary use, which, the argument is that secondary use subordinate to the primary. So
And
the courts, go ahead, Steve.
I just wanted to comment, if you go look through the zoning and the laws, it's an accessory use.
Thank you, Steve.
So
And accessories. So there was an Article 78 gentleman that, went to court, the neighborhood bound together, and they created this neighborhood association. And ultimately went to court, and I think it was appealed, correct, Steve?
We put forward a set of conditions,
Right.
which the neighbors didn't agree with, and Article 78 us. It went to court. Basically, the judge said the conditions that you've applied don't look like it's limiting this to being an accessory use to me, meaning we were still allowing too much activity, too large of events. So it came back to the board, the planning board, a second time, and we came up with, I think, what you see on the screen now. And that then essentially was accepted.
Right. Thank you,
So-
Steve. And the courts upheld this.
Right.
So the applicants were successful in that within these conditions that you're seeing on the screen, they could continue with their wedding events. And so within a specific envelope or footprint for tents and all that. So now here we are, fast forward to 2021. And so my question is, to John, were these found to be in compliance? And John is sharing with me, and this is, we'll open it up to Mr. Kartowski and Ms. Johansson now is it still a going concern, the business as approved? And then if so, how does the subdivision, well, are these compliant? And if not, we've got to fix that first, in my humble opinion. And then secondly, how does the subdivision impact? So this is where we get back into it, Tim and Nick, is, these were approved based upon, call it implied buffers, right? That because of where the tent was located and the music and all of that, it was really based on the land as it existed at that time. So if they're going to subdivide it now and sell it, does that somehow change the perspective? I don't have that answer yet, but that's certainly a valid question. So does that help, Nick and Tim? Just a Dixie cup?
Very much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
you're
really
welcome.
clarified it. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. So that's worth 4 minutes. So, Mr. Kartowski, you're on. Can you hear us?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
All right. Thanks for
and-
your patience.
oh, no problem. Well, and I thank the planning board for your work over the years. And actually, we started coming to you back in 2016. So trying to remember all the details as well as we have. There are a few things that I'd like to make sure that we can provide you the documentation to make sure that it's really clear exactly what did happen and whether we were, what we did. But the planning board approved on June 6th of 2017, a site plan for us to have 9 events a year with 170 guests. And we created a site plan to accommodate that. And then that was revised. Yes, there was an Article 78 that said the ZBA did not have the right to do that. So I'm not going to go through all of that, but you didn't get it exactly right. But ultimately, it was determined that the ZBA does have the right to determine accessory uses, and never said that there was too many events. They said the planning board would have the responsibility to take some action. There were, lots of opinions and feedback from the community and letters that said exactly what they wanted. And the planning board came back on February 11th of 2018 and said, here are the conditions. Prior to that, we had documented every event. We had provided that to the code enforcement officer, to the town police, and basically documented all the things that were happening at every single event. And subsequent to this set of conditions, we met with the code enforcement officer, the highway supervisor, and had them come to our site to look at the new revised limits that were placed on it, which is 4 events and 75 guests with people leaving at certain times with sound measurements. And I documented every single event prior to the event, during the event, and after the event. We contacted the police. We had the police come at every event. So if you want to find out whether we were in compliance, you can do that also. We measured the sound levels. I documented those. So I'm not really certain where someone would say that we were not in compliance with what the conditions for the site plan were. We never used some of the things that were recommended by the planning board to accommodate 170 guests for 9 events, like overflow parking, a bus pull-off, and a 50 by 80 tent, because we only had 75 guests. So yes, the only restriction, excuse me, all the restrictions that you had, we complied with. And we're happy to update the facility site plan map. And we have engaged an engineer to do that. Effectively, that engineering effort will basically remove the items that we have never used. So, we were coming here to talk about a subdivision, not necessarily site plan, but we are an ongoing concern, although in COVID, we were paused for 8 months. I continue to document any activities or events, and I can provide all of those, every single one of them. And they were through email, they were not through registered mail, but I'm certain that the email should be adequate. So do you have any questions about that so far?
I'd just like to clarify, I don't think at this point that we're questioning whether you adhered to the conditions as shown in the document in front of us.
Okay.
It's whether or not you executed on the improvements that were in fact shown on the site plan. And I think
The only improvement that we did not execute on was the building of a bus pull-off that would have been appropriate if we had 170 guests. And I mentioned that we had the highway supervisor come and review that. And there was an agreement that we didn't need to do that.
Well, but
in our contract, by the way, we changed all of our contracts specifically to address that there are no buses allowed for any event. And in fact, we've never had one since that time. So.
Right, but that still does not change or update the site plan. So.
No, I understand.
And I
that,
believe
but
I beg to differ a little bit. I believe there
Okay.
were some other things in the site plan that were not executed on, like landscaping along the road to shield the event from.
Actually, we did every other thing that's on there. We put in fences, we put in boulders, we put in plantings, we did all of the things that were on the map.
Well, so thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski. So John, it gets back to my initial discussion, right? So, right, Steve rightfully calls out, right? So we approved the site plan. Your understanding is this isn't a going concern, but in my question of you, John, is this compliant? I mean, I understand the applicant is saying he called the police, but they're not the enforcing agency, you are. And I would like sign off that as the site plan is currently approved, 2018 or whatever the date was, does the zoning officer, can it tell this board in confidence that all of the things have been adhered to? I just think without that, I can't move forward with another subdivision. It doesn't make sense.
There's never been a subdivision, so I'm not certain what you mean by another subdivision.
I'm sorry, is that John?
No, this is
John, I can't move forward with the subdivision.
Well, the subdivision has nothing to do with this site plan. The site plan is all, as it is here on February 11th, when it was signed, is all in effect and has happened. Most everything stopped after the COVID business started, so.
No, see, John, that's where I disagree. So we approved the site plan with specific requests that the applicant agreed to. Whether they're in business or not, and the applicant just said he is, were they completed as was agreed to?
Yeah.
So you're telling us that they've been approved?
Yeah, they're fine as far as the agreement back in 2018. They're up to speed.
All right, so it calls for, as Steve said, landscaping and the bus parking So if the bus isn't needed, then we need to adjust the site plan because that's not, the path that the applicant shared is not how a site plan is edited. A site plan is edited by coming back to the planning board and reviewing a plat and getting it approved. It's not done by avenues outside of a planning board meeting, unless I don't
and
understand the
Dave,
process.
I appreciate that, but we actually were never asked to update the map, and we were just given the conditions. We took and I appreciate it, and I'm not expert in this. We did contact the code enforcement officer, and he came to many events, most events in 2018, probably every one. And we did have the supervisor come out and look and advise us based on the restrictions.
So the supervisor runs
so-
the planning board now?
Pardon me?
Listen, Mr. Kotowski, this really isn't a conversation between you and me at this point. It's
Oh,
between
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I didn't know that we needed to update the site plan. We're happy to do that. I mentioned we've engaged with.
So John, you're saying that this is currently in compliance from your office. So I'd like to get that in writing. I've asked for it.
Wait a minute here. The 6 items that are shown here as the conditions to site plan for Ashokan Dreams is the 6 items you're concerned about, right?
No,
No, we're talking about the map.
Where's the rest of them that go with this then?
They're on the map. They're
we're
on the map.
talking about the map, the site plan map.
Yeah, well, the site plan map that was happening there at that time is all in compliance, except that bus pull-off that they didn't need, that they didn't have after the numbers of people were reduced to 75 rather than 150. or
Right, but
170.
that question never came back to the planning board as the issue at hand.
Well,
That-
to me, that's the planning board's fault for not following up on it. That has
Well,
nothing-
we're not an enforcement agency, John, you know that.
If you're not happy with what's there and what's going on here, then they need to reapply for a site plan update to show you what is actually going to end up being there at this point before you can go ahead with your subdivision.
Yeah, that's exactly what David's point is.
And
Exactly.
that's what they say they would do.
Right,
Yeah.
and then the other thought becomes the site plan was originally approved based upon this all being one lot. So if now a subdivision is being introduced that is going to peel off the lands to the, I think it's the south, but whichever, on the other side of the road, then how does, and the board has already had this discussion, how does this impact the site plan that we've already approved? And
Right.
I think the board, I don't want to speak on behalf of a member who's not here, but I believe myself and that board member who's absent feel very comfortable and confident that it does impact, we would want to take another look at.
Well, I guess there's two things here,
Yep.
in my view. One is that a site plan can encompass more than one lot.
Okay,
But, I'm thinking to myself that might entail additional restrictions, meaning if one or the other of the lots were to be sold, then that site plan becomes null and void. I'm
null and
not sure
void, right? Exactly.
legally how you do that, but that kind of a path would in fact alleviate the issue that says, the buffers and the such are changing and all that, right? So,
Exactly.
so that's, I guess one way. The other is to look at it from the standpoint of a new site plan that's only on the one lot. And go through the process and see if we can find a way that's acceptable
Yeah.
in that scenario that works, right?
Right. I think, and we're happy to do that. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
No, it's all right. That's-
No, I mean, and again, these events are ephemeral, right? There may be a tent. We have, with these much smaller events, in fact, haven't had tents. So it's basically people arriving and leaving after 6 hours. And so, we have time restrictions, we have sound restrictions. And we still, we are happy to go through that process. Again, to update the map.
I think at this point, that's where you have to go. You have to revise the site plan to show you the conditions that may exist in the immediate future, then you'll see that the old site plan is really a pipe dream that went away.
Yep. Everything that you see in that area that is on the right, we were asked to add. And we've never had a tent there, and we've never parked cars there, and we've never had a bus pull off there, but
Right.
and we don't need to do that, and we don't need to have ceremonies there, quite honestly. Most people now don't want to do that, so.
As you point out, a lot of that was predicated on the size of the events.
Exactly, and we did contact the go through the process. Sorry, we didn't go back through the planning board process. It wasn't clear from the letter that we needed to do that, update the map.
Okay. So you're going to come back, I guess, with a new proposal from the standpoint of the site plan? Is that the next step?
I think that's what I heard.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, I didn't know that that was the next step. We did have wanted to have a preliminary meeting for a proposal for a subdivision and tell you a little bit about that. You did give us a great deal of advice when we met with you a year ago about setbacks and consideration, and we've incorporated all of that into our, the current, preliminary the minor subdivision map. We're not done with it, but any of the other advice you would have for us would be appreciated. But are you suggesting that we're not doing that today?
I guess I don't have a problem if you want to describe what the plan is. I do know that we got multiple maps that seem to have conflicting information on them. The printed map I have showed a 10-acre piece being carved off. The more recent one I got via email showed a 6-acre lot being carved off.
Which is
yeah, we have not. We're still working through the process.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we've been focusing primarily on the road part of this and the setbacks. And actually, based on the feedback, we've started the process of doing perk testing, and we're at this point waiting for Board of Health approval. So we're making sure that there's over 350 feet of road access. Yeah, you can see that.
This map is not.
And this is not the map that we're.
We cannot.
Yeah, we're not. That's not. Yeah.
That other map is.
As you know, with any planning process, we're going through lots of different revisions, but.
So are you anticipating that when you come back with the revised site plan, that it's going to encompass both properties or only the one that?
The site plan, no, site plan, we've actually, based on the feedback from Mr. Cahill and you, we have broadened the lot 1 road frontage, and you can see the setbacks that we have from that. But yeah, effectively we're trying to figure out how much, whether the size will be, but basically everything on the road you'll see there is what we're going to incorporate. Yeah, and there, by the way, there's no new physical structures whatsoever. Everything that's here, all these physical structures have been here, we've been here for 30 years. We've never added structures. We've only, enhanced them.
No, I guess I'm maybe I'm not understanding your answer, or
Okay,
I'm not asking the right question. The revised site plan for the wedding events.
Okay.
Do you anticipate that that's going to be solely on
solely on one lot? Yes.
Okay. Okay.
On the lot that will have 20 acres or more. Yeah.
Right. Got it.
Right, and a lot of the calculations are based on the lot size and not necessarily the lot width. And I know that you have some concerns about sound. That's great. We're willing to, because we've measured that. We'll continue to do that.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll see what you propose.
Yeah, well, it would be exactly what was there. Obviously, it's easier for me to see it than you to see it because we're removing all the things that we were asked to add, but we'll do that.
So are you saying the new site plans never, it's not going to call for any use of tents?
No, we won't need a 50 by 80 tent, which accommodates 200 people, which is what you asked us to find a place to put on our map to be able to do the 170 guests. No, where our maps we will have a much smaller footprint in terms of tents for 75 people. In fact, you know, I 30 by 30 is probably, you know, the standard size. But we will have the, you know, and that was one of the, actually, I think that's maybe even smaller than the smallest size that was on the last map, but
It is.
but those green, you know, the plantings were there, the stones were there, you know, so.
Yeah, so I think it's been requested before, and I'll just remind you, I guess, that, or discussed before, that I guess I would like to see the new site plan, but also kind of an overlay of the proposed subdivision.
Right.
With the, you know, the site plan. on
Right,
it,
right.
Both on one map, if we
Yeah,
could.
I think
Okay.
it has to be done in concert, right? So to avoid kind of a segmented march, right? The
Yeah.
goal of the planning board is having the end in mind, right? So
Yeah.
what you're saying, Mr. Kartowski, is you're planning to subdivide the land, the numbers, you know, whatever, it's gonna be a 10-acre lot or a 6-acre lot, whatever. And then what is the revised site plan? If we can see those in concert,
Yes,
that
we
that
will,
would be the
we will,
best.
we will do that. So right now we have, we will do that and we'll come back with that. We're working with the engineering company to, you know, to remove those other items and just replace them on. So you want to see them on this particular map? Because normally I thought the site plan was supposed to be a separate map, but as
Well,
part of
I
the
think
review process, we can
Well,
do whatever it is that you want us to bring back, we can bring it back that way.
You can certainly do a separate map, but, you know, when we review it, since we're going to be looking at both the site plan and this subdivision application, I think we'd, you know, when we're doing the subdivision, we'd like to see the proximity of the event space to the new lot.
Okay. That's fair. And right now you can see along the, if you were to zoom back a little bit, or move back a little bit, you can see the, you know, we have over 700 feet of road frontage and the two lots would be basically on High Point Mountain Road.
Yep.
And
So-
Heidi, if I could just ask you a question, I know you've recused yourself, but do you know what zoning this is? Because you had that map.
I believe it's R3.
Thank
And
you.
the zoning details regarding the setbacks are on the face of the map as well, on the right side, well, the bottom. In this case,
It'll
we
be,
gotta rotate
the
it. but-
bottom, given
but
the
yes.
orientation.
Yeah, there's actually, not to confuse it, but I mean, our lot is in 2 zones, but it's
Yeah.
where we're talking about the subdivision and the site plan are in 3-acre zoning.
Thank you.
And I can always, Bernier and Larios can always add the 1-acre zoning information. It's just not pertinent to the portion of the application being presented, but if that information is requested, that zoning block is easy to put on.
And I was just looking at the map, I was, say, not quite sure of the implications. There is a right of way, I guess, that goes down to 28A, or there's a right of way being proposed.
No,
Is
no,
it
the right of
existing?
way, the right of way has been there for a long, long time.
Okay,
It's actually, it's our land, it's our property that others have been granted right of way on. We're not
Yep.
challenging that, and, you know, that's not at issue. That's been a longstanding right away, and the Town of Olive Library uses it. We have neighbors who use it, and we have a landowner who has a parcel of land that has access to that.
It
So,
is an
and
issue.
others. Pardon
The
me?
right of way is an issue.
Why is it an
It's
issue?
an issue because it passes a house and there's very little space between the right of way, the road, and the house that's next to the library to the left. It is an issue.
To the
The
left,
road is an
as you-
issue.
to the left as you face the library.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not
from-
proposing any changes in this area. I'm really confused as to what we're now
Okay.
discussing.
If the right of way is used, if the land is divided, it will affect the house that is on the road of the right of way.
I'm not
There's
certain
very
who's,
little
I'm not
room.
certain who's speaking, but in fact, we're not doing anything to the land anywhere near Route 28A.
Right, so access to the new lot would not be based on using that right away, right?
No.
Absolutely not. And by the way, we have that right, it's our land.
Yep.
It's, I mean, we have the right to use our land to access our property. So I'm not certain who is asking the question, but I'd love to talk to you.
Well, it was
about it.
Yeah, it was a comment from Miss Slutskelly.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I believe on the map, though, you are granting use.
We're not granting anything.
No, but you're granting use of the right of way to the lot you're creating.
No.
No.
Oh, there's it's not on there? Oh, I thought I read
It's,
that.
it's their existing home lot, right?
There is mention of use of that 15-foot wide Woods Road up to the parcel that Bernier and
Yeah.
Larios had mapped, but we can remove that if you no longer want that.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and again, this is a preliminary map where it's a large parcel and, Bernier and Larios has done an amazing job at remarking it and again, we have the contours and everything on there. Right, the Wood Road, historically, people got to this farm by coming up that road to this farm. That's historically how it was done. Before High Point Mountain Road.
I'm not questioning, how you do it. I'm just pointing out that it did mention it on the map. You're
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank
to do that, your land. So.
Where did you say?
you. Yeah, okay, that was an early, yeah.
And Steve, remember we researched who actually owns Route 28A and we solved for that, and it connects to the conversation around, do we need to share this with the county?
Well, it's owned by the city.
Right.
So I think the answer was no. It's
Right.
maintained under contract by the county, but it's not a county road. It is actually a city-owned road.
Yep, that's what I recall. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not making any claims associated with light industrial, so. And we're not changing any uses for, in that area.
So I guess I didn't get it from the map because the library isn't shown, but is that right away what empties out behind the library?
Yeah, when you leave the library, you're leaving actually on our property.
Yep, yep. Okay.
Am I allowed to ask a question? I'm sorry. Anna Mandelbaum.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Chester. Hi, nice to see you.
I mean, hold on one second, please, Ms. Mandelbaum. So, board, this is where I think it's a little slippery, right? If do we want to allow the public to ask questions outside of a public hearing, or do we want to,
I personally don't think we should, but that's me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in your camp. So
Yeah, Anna,
Ms.
Anna, you can
Mandelbaum,
give me a call anytime.
yeah,
Sure,
but just with all due respect, just because.
That's fine. No, it's fine. I like to follow the rules. That's okay. No
Yeah.
problem. Next time.
Thank you. All right.
Well,
So I guess, Mr. Katowski, so what is the purpose? Are you planning on selling the lot and as a buildable lot?
We're creating a buildable lot. I mean, in the town of Olive, if I have 30 acres, I can't build two houses on it. I can only build one house on it. So we're doing a subdivision. We've always dreamed of building a retirement home on that parcel. We may or may not do that, but that's it. So, and we're actually looking at, other options in terms of maybe a smaller lot. You've seen a 6-acre version. It may be smaller than that. We're trying to figure that out with the topography and everything else.
Okay, and I asked the question in the spirit of transparency of a recent trend in the town of Olive, which is taking large lots and slicing them up. So, with your 3-acre zoning, right, if you were to make it.
Yeah, no,
whatever it is.
we're here with one lot requested. That's it.
Okay, and if I heard you correctly, you would be looking to keep the new lot, if you will, as a retirement, build your own home, whatever, potentially.
We're gonna own both. We're gonna own both lots, so. Right.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That doesn't mean that we would own them forever, but that's.
No, yeah, and I'm not asking you for that projection. Okay.
All right, so we weren't, I appreciate the feedback. We'll provide you the information that you requested. We'll do that on one map. And we will, if that's okay, right? You wanted to see the.
Yeah, I would like to see it.
Subdivision and the site plan on one map. We can do that.
I think so in this case, given that it's unique. I guess I do have a question though. And Tim, can you turn this counterclockwise, just one turn? So as I recall, the parking for your guests was to be across the street, opposite the B&B, if you will, right? Opposite that parking lot.
Yes.
So
It's still there.
Continues.
it's still gonna be there. So I just can't
Yeah,
make
we-
up the mind. Is that
we
all
will-
gonna be one lot?
Yeah, that we'll have 5 acres across we'll continue to maintain our 5 acres across, we actually own all the land under High Point Mountain Road. So there's no separate lots. It's all our land. So all you see on the left is part of the lot, which will include all of the structures. There are no structures on the subdivided lot, none whatsoever.
But you're
And I
saying the
guess
land, so the land on the right now where the 3-story main house is, and I apologize, I'm colorblind, so I'm sure there's colored lines here. But
Yeah,
on
no,
the
and I
left,
apologize for that. That's good to know. And this is not accessible and I apologize, but.
No, that's
yeah,
okay,
lot-
but-
It's called Lot 1, will
Yeah.
include not actually probably more than 20 acres. And it will include all of the current structures and the entire site plan for the B&B and events. And that includes.
and will it
the land
also
acro-
include parking? I'm sorry, will it also
Go
include
ahead.
parking on the other side of the road? That's what I'm missing.
Yes,
Okay,
as per the site plan that was approved, yeah.
Okay, so Tim, can you show me where I'm getting that this is fluid, it's gonna move. Where is the new proposed line for the 2 lots? That's what I'm missing.
I'm sorry.
Is it this,
Right there.
this down the middle?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
new lot
down the middle.
line. Okay, and then going to the left, Tim, does it go to the middle of the road and then down?
Goes to the middle,
Okay.
goes to the middle of the road, yeah.
And then it
yeah.
goes, okay, that's what I was missing.
No, it does
Doesn't
not
go
go,
that way,
it does
Tim.
not go to the left. It's all to the right. It's a
It's a lot.
rectangular relative, it's a trapezoid, but it's rectangular shape. And
The new lot doesn't cross the road.
Oh,
it
okay,
does
that's what I
not,
was missing.
it does not cross the road.
Okay,
And as we shrink it, it'll move further, that eastern border will move further to the left as you're looking at it now.
thank you. Okay,
Yeah, it is, north is basic, almost straight up. It's probably at 1 o'clock to the way the map is positioned right now.
thank you. I wasn't tracking earlier. Okay.
I do have a question regarding the SECR Part 1 that was provided.
Yes.
If I remember our discussions from several years ago now, I guess, it seemed like the being in the area of archaeologically significant, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that
Uh,
actually ends on our neighbor's property. And that's a very wide circle it's drawn, but it does not actually touch our property.
Right. I'm just curious because it's checked no in the current secra, and I believe in the prior iteration, it was a yes. And
Well, you know, we put it on the map too. It's actually on the site plan. So, but you'll see it's not actually on our property.
right, I understand, but it's if your property abuts property that has it, I believe is the.
Okay, yeah, that's, I'm
I
happy to make that change,
Well,
but
I guess my question to you is, was that form filled out manually, or did you use the tool? Because there is a tool that will pull that information automatically. And we kind of prefer that that's the way it's done, because then it picks up the stuff from the databases.
I did not do that this time because was trying to get it into you for the pre-approval, but I can go find that and do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we understand the situation. We have a lot of them that they get yes checked. That's really not significant from the standpoint of what's being proposed, but it's better to have it there and be in
Okay.
line with what.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
state-
we went through we went through a very comprehensive review back in 2000 and, 17, 18, 16. So, yep, we have that. That's,
Okay.
thank you for that advice. Anything else that you see on the map? And I'm not really certain how to handle the point about accessibility with mapping, because those, there actually are different, there's probably a legend because the yard markers, there are the elevation markers are a different dash type.
Yeah, Mr. Kotowski, I don't bring it up for accessibility. I just couldn't follow the map. That's all. Don't worry. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, so we show there the setbacks from all of the physical structures that are there.
Yep. I mean, on this, I think, we'll basically just wait till you get the updated version that is as you want it, with the proper area and dimensions, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sensitivity is going to come into this with respect to the site plan is just the setbacks as you just mentioned, right? And
yeah.
Can we keep it within the, my hope would be, and I know hope's not a strategy, but my anticipation would be, based upon what we've previously approved in terms of the site plan and the accessory use being subordinate to the primary use, can you replicate that within the conditions, right? And to your point, you don't need a circus tent any longer, right? And
Right.
I forgot, I don't even know how we wound up with, we certainly didn't dictate any dimensions for tents, right? I just remember iterations with your consultant coming back.
Actually, you did.
You
You actually did, but whatever, that's irrelevant at this point.
Well, I
But
think-
yeah, there were some letters from Ed, but in any event, there, and you saw that marked up document was a letter from Ed about other changes he recommended that we made and we did do. But in any event, yeah, we can do that. And actually the jog in the property line is specifically over to accommodate exactly what you're asking about. So.
Yep.
So I guess, I guess I'm pretty good at this, but if you want to be argumentative, then I'm confused. So we asked for drainage and we asked for a bus. So you chose to ignore that and not subscribe to those recommendations, but you subscribed and say that we dictated a circus tent. So I guess I'm trying to understand how that can be productive.
I'm sorry.
I don't remember us ever recommending a specific size of a tent based upon the crowd.
No,
We went
actually-
there, we made a visit. We
Okay.
never had any formulations on a tent size.
The discussion was on what size tent was needed to handle the capacity, the size.
Right.
Right, and then we were
Exactly.
asked, even though we had never had a 50 by 80 tent ever, we were asked to put that on. But I'm not being argumentative. I
Yeah.
apologize if I appear to be. But no, we'll, show you the tent sizes and what number of guests that accommodates, because not the average person doesn't go, oh, 75 guests, that's a whatever size. So
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
noted. So,
I think
and
the,
because we had 175 guests, we were asked to make sure that we had multiple places to accommodate a very large tent.
I think,
So
you know, a
we
lot
did-
of the issue is that we, from the planning board standpoint, really need to look at worst case. So,
Yeah, no, and that's very fair, and that's what we did. We did the whole
Yeah.
map. We did that.
right, right.
We did all of that, and we were actually engaged to build the pull-off. And
Yep.
then we were told, well, and so again, we can share, I can actually share the letters for each event. I can share the, whatever it is, any other documentation in terms of compliance that you would like to see.
Well, I guess just moving forward, I guess I would like to avoid selective compliance. So whatever we wind up approving through a resolution, which I suspect we'll be successful doing to our mutual
Yeah.
benefit, that we have timely alignment and execution to what's on the map. That's all. So there's no, because,
That's
up
fair.
until this
That's-
evening, it's the
that's
first
fair.
time I've heard from John that this is compliant. It's a complete surprise to me, because up until this point, that's not what I've been hearing.
Hearing from whom?
Yeah, I'm not certain.
Well, and you were never party to this, but, and, you know,
Okay.
we could go back to minutes. We've had discussions saying, what's going on with the Showcane Dreams? What's going on? And it's always been played back that we don't know. They haven't made the changes. So I'm just asking in the spirit of transparency and really, we're all investing this time.
Yeah.
Let's
No,
get
and
it done correctly.
trust me, we have been very focused on being compliant with everything that we've been asked to do and documenting it.
Right. And then, of course,
And
yeah. Agree. So
the
let's just
number of
please make
guests,
sure.
when they arrive, when they leave, the sound levels. We're
Yeah, I
sending
think-
letters
I
to the
think the-
police.
I think the whole is just not in having reworked the plan based on the lower number of guests. That's all.
Right,
So,
okay. All right, that's very fair, obviously. So we will do that.
okay.
Yeah. And then so regarding, again, this is sort of a pre-application, again, looking at the procedures and requirements for a minor subdivision. This is really a preliminary meeting for pre-application to say, hey, this is what we're planning. And, we'll come back with the map for the subdivision that will also include the site plan with all of the site elements on lot 1 as you look at this map right now.
Yep.
So at this point, we haven't heard back from Sailor Mill. So we already have LaFleche on the 18th. Mr. Kartowski, do you think by the 18th you could have a preliminary plat for us to review and site plan?
I missed the date.
The 18th.
May 18th, 2 weeks.
So that would be 2 weeks. We've got, I can't commit for my engineer, but I'll have a question tomorrow. And that's been one of our challenges, that everyone that works in this field is like tremendously busy. So,
Yeah,
but I think we can do that, but that's my opinion and not my engineer's opinion.
It's not really the 18th though, because we'd like to have a little time to review your new materials beforehand. So
Okay.
that's,
So when would you say you need to have it by then? If it's not the 18th?
Janelle, what's our policy?
14th.
Normally the policy's 2 weeks and
2
that's.
weeks, so.
That's what I was going to say, right?
Did Bernier and Larios do the site plan as well? Brian? Just curious.
They are working on it, yes.
But did
So-
they do the original one though?
No, they did not.
I guess I would say I'm familiar enough with this that if I had a week's lead time, that would be fine with me. I don't want to speak for others, so.
I would agree.
I just don't think probably Bernier and Larios is gonna be able to put it together in that time, but
Well, it's already been
my
started.
personal opinion, but
Yeah, they've been here marking and measuring for a year. So, but
part of
again,
the-
I
in the
need to
site
go
plan.
back to them.
Okay, well, I guess, Mr. Kurtowski, we just want to be transparent with you. So in terms of scheduling, if, you know, Janelle needs 14 weeks technically. If you think you can have something, a deliverable to the board that would be productive on the 18th, I think for the most part, the board feels comfortable with a week's notice, then we can have a productive meeting on the 18th. If not, you're looking at June 15th, because we have a major subdivision that's probably going to take up the June 1st date.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I am clear. So we would need to have it to you by the 11th. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. We can let you know as soon as we can. We'll hopefully confirm that tomorrow.
Yeah, you can just work through Janelle.
And if it doesn't work, we'll tell you what the date is. But yeah, that will be our objective, to get that to you by the 11th.
And that would be a whole new site plan application and map and the maps, right, Dave? Or,
No, we were just doing.
No, it can be one map.
yeah, but the
And it's-
site plan, I mean, the paperwork is, are we creating a new site plan number? We have to, because we've already,
I would say yes, because it's
Yeah.
being significantly changed, yes. Right.
But we're changing it at your,
conditions.
again, we're changing it based on your conditions. So is that, I think we're trying to come
We're
to
just amending.
compliance with your conditions. But if you think we need to do a new one, we're not
Well, it's-
trying to do anything other than comply with what we've been approved by the planning board.
It says it's approved.
Well, we're editing the current one, correct? So there's no bus pull
We're
off.
editing a map. We're not editing any other requests, requirements, numbers. We're
That's-
not doing that.
That's correct at this point.
Right.
The conditions are not going, or have not changed at this point.
Right, the conditions. It's just
Right.
it's the elements of the map of the
But
site.
the
plan.
net of it is, we approved the existing site plan. So I think now we're on to developing a new site plan.
No,
That's,
but they come
I
in.
also feel this should be treated as a new one with a new number. Just if nothing, for no other reason than administratively keeping track of things.
Okay, so, application. Okay,
And
And then and then the seeker, as Steve said, is, just have this system
yep,
generated.
okay, that's fine. I got that too. Perfect. So do I need to do it twice for each application?
no.
Okay,
That's not subdivision.
okay. I think we got all the things that you've asked us for.
What are we doing? What are we signing up for? Yeah.
Well, to do the subdivision, we've been told that we have to update the site plan map.
No, we have to do a whole new site plan.
It just needs to have another Anne Marie, it has to, because the other one has totally been filed away in the vault. So now you're presenting it like a new site plan, because it's going to be different from the one that's been filed.
Right, there's not a process that I'm aware of to
But we didn't do
append.
that when you gave us new conditions. Why? That was completely different.
I'm sorry, but
We
you
have
did-
here
you did-
redressed
you-
and approved.
at the time, you decided that you were not going to do things that were on the original site plan.
No, you gave us conditions that were not on the original site plan.
The conditions were separate from the site plan. The site plan was approved. The conditions changed, but that didn't change the
Just
site
conditions,
plan.
the site-
The current site plan that's filed is showing the bus location and all the other things that are required for that particular site plan. The conditions have nothing to do with the site plan stating all of that description. So now that has to change. Am I muted?
He's
No,
muted.
you're,
We hear you.
No.
we heard
No,
you.
I think the applicant's just having a discussion. I mean,
No,
I
I
know
was
it's,
trying to, we got muted somehow and I was trying to unmute, so thank you.
Okay.
yeah, I
Um,
think we're not
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to make it,
Yeah, so the confusion is the site plan has all of the conditions on it. When you look at it, it has everything on there, the number of people, the number of, all that stuff. So
right.
that's
On-
fine.
On the
On the
map,
map.
you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, on the map. And so
Yeah, they were
therefore the
listed.
map doesn't track with the
Correct.
conditions.
And that's what,
So-
that's really what we want to fix, right?
Right,
Okay.
and plus
I-
your new lot line goes through the original proposed bus parking, right? So,
And I don't think we're really asking for a lot of new work.
No,
With
no.
with it being new, you can just copy everything off the old one probably, or most of it.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. So we'll
yeah,
do that.
it's just administrative, right?
Yeah, my
Okay.
view.
Right, so we're gonna meet with our engineer tomorrow and ask about the 11th. If we will know very quickly whether we can or can't. And if we can't, we'll tell you, it will tell you one way or another as soon as possible. We'll do these other things independent of that, the map so we can get that information in as soon as possible. The updated seeker, the updated site plan application, the updated seeker, I already said seeker. Okay.
And
And that
assuming,
we would need, the number of copies submitted to the town offices for distribution to the members, plus everything with a PDF version for use at the meeting.
Okay, yeah, the PDF is the easiest part these days, so, yeah, okay.
Janelle, you have envelopes and things in prep for a public hearing?
I do.
And that's,
As long as the neighbors haven't changed from a year ago.
No, we just gave envelopes for this meeting, you
Right.
asked us to provide them.
That's because the normal application we get 2 sets. The first set is used to have the building office send out the initial letter telling people that
Okay,
it's being reviewed. The second set is for me to send out notice of a public hearing.
yeah.
I still have the set for the public hearing
Gotcha.
that was submitted a year ago. We did
Gotcha.
ask for that other set just because it has been such a long time.
Right, I believe that there are no changes since that time. I'm looking at it right now and, yeah.
Yeah, so,
And if there's something that's missing there, we'll provide that, but I think we have not a lot of turnover in terms of property changes around us here.
okay,
Okay. So I think I went through that. I'll just do recap one more time. Let you know as soon as possible that we will have everything that you need, we've talked about by the 11th. Or that would have to move out to the June meeting. And I'm going to update the seeker and the site plan application. And I will put together, if it's helpful, some of just a couple of reference documents related to our compliance, and we can just put it in the record.
whatever you want to submit with that, yeah.
Right.
okay.
All right.
Anybody
Great.
have any other questions from the board?
No, good with him. Good forward. Okay, well, have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, take care.
Thank you very
Janelle, do you
much.
have anything?
No. I'm good.
I think I did want to ask, has anybody heard anything regarding at some point being mandated to switch back to face-to-face public meetings?
I hope not.
I'd heard a rumor a while back, but I haven't been able to verify anything.
It's getting extended month to month. I know the library is anticipating being in person next month because they extended like the day before our last meeting. So we weren't even sure last time. They don't make it easy on you, I guess is what I'm saying.
What, in what way, David?
They wait until the end of the extension to extend it. So it's hard to be
well,
sure a couple days beforehand whether you can meet in person online or not.
Okay, that's what I just didn't want to get, I'll say, caught off guard if we're in the middle of doing what potentially could be a very large public hearing. And all of a sudden get told you can't do Zoom, right?
It is distinctly possible.
Okay.
Right.
Is that something
Well,
that,
we can probably rig something where we are zooming it, where we have at least a quorum in person.
right,
Well, we would have
have
to hold,
both?
and then the rest can be zoomed.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a while back in terms of whether we could get something set up over in the hall.
I could certainly rig something if it came to an emergency.
Yeah, okay. That's all. Just curious.
And hey, just anybody hear anything about Rice Plumbing? I guess they're not opening, huh?
No, the truck is over there.
Yeah, no, they
Oh,
got
it
a sign
is?
out. Yeah, I think they're working on it.
Oh, okay. I
Yep.
must have missed it.
They
And
have
how
a
about
sign
Bread
out.
Alone, man? They've torn that place apart.
Yeah, they did.
Pretty much new building.
Yeah, totally got it. Totally got it. You could see right through the middle. Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, well, fun times.
Okay.
So I just with regard to Sailor Mill, so I did get confirmation that the additional funds have been received by the town for the escrow, so that was put in. Janice let me know that today, so.
Could you check with Janice and see after the payments, what's left in the account? Because I know that in fact, the current billing was more than what was there before, right? So I believe they added 7,500 to the.
That's
the
what she
account.
said, that
Right.
75 was put in.
But already we're below that, so I'm wondering what's there, whether we still have 5,000 or what's,
She didn't say. I can reach out to her.
okay.
But it should, I think it's right in that range though, Steve, 5,500 based on an email from
Oh, okay,
between Catherine and Frank.
okay.
So, because Frank was actually willing to send an additional check, and Catherine was like, or someone was like, it's okay.
Yeah, Catherine wasn't aware of our previous request
Oh, okay.
to add funds, so that's why.
So Janelle, just to make sure we're clear on the next agenda, right? So we have the La Flèche and potentially a Shokan, and then I would say, if Sailor Mill comes back, we could reserve time for them to just go over their rebuttals, if you will, just to us on the May 24th letter, what they've done, and I think that would be sufficient.
Okay.
No, I'm wondering if things start slowing down a little bit, are we able to go back maybe after May to one meeting a month?
We can do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want.
Because April was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I didn't want to, Mr. Kurtowski, Shokan Dreams, but I mean, if they don't meet the next meeting, they're probably out to August by the time of a public hearing. That would be my guess.
What is we were talking about, are you talking about another large subdivision that's coming down the pike also that you're privy to?
Well,
Did we
I
receive
think
anything on it?
Brooks and Brooks, right? Brown Road?
Yeah, well, but that was a map drawn up prior to the sale of the property to show what was possible.
So I don't know if John is still on, but he is. So I am aware of 2 new subdivision applications coming our way. They have already reached out and they are meeting with Mr. Ingram tomorrow. So
Do we know what the scope of those are? One
two
lot?
lots, two lot.
Okay,
One of them is a 2-lot subdivision on Freeman Avery Road.
Hmm.
And the other one is a 2-lot subdivision of the property that Mr. and Mrs. Dino Giuliano used to own.
okay.
The people just want to create two lots, both of them.
Here
and-
in West Shokan or?
No, it was Dino and Florence's, I don't know the name of that road that they used to have their house on with the
Okay.
barns.
Okay.
County Route
What is
was
it,
that?
John?
County Route 3.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
So those applications, and they're like, I've already sent me material, so I know that they're very close to being ready with their presentation. And, but they just had to meet with John. So I'm thinking, so I don't know when to put them on. I guess it depends on what Sailor Mill does, right? Because they're probably going to have their paperwork to me in time for technically the first week in June's meeting.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we're really dependent on what Sailor Mill does
Yeah.
in terms of having, open slots. Maybe we're at a point with Sailor Mill where we don't want to have an exclusive meeting for them and we'll schedule some other things. I don't
Yep.
know. Dave, what do you think?
I think, per Heidi's comment, right, I think we can kind of dictate our own
Yeah.
future here. And yeah, we don't need to make Sailor Mill the priority, right? I mean, they've had
Yeah.
that letter for months now, so.
If we dedicate an hour to Sailor Mill and the other hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever to getting the other business taken care of, then so be it, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd rather have one long meeting, and I know they go long, but I'd rather have one long meeting than 2 long meetings.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I had tonight all wrong. I told my wife this one would be 90 minutes and done.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I thought this one was gonna be short, so I thought I was gonna be putting the kids to bed at 8:30. They were like, Mom. Sorry, guys.
Sometimes I think having more on the agenda forces you to push through it more quickly too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So Janelle, you're saying that neither of those applications that you received, though, will be ready for the May 18th meeting? So there's really possibly just LaFleche and or Karatowski, if Bernier and Larios can furnish a map that quickly?
Yeah. I mean, those people aren't going to have it. I mean, this is the 2-week mark.
Okay,
So-
right.
Yeah, so
So far, their applications are incomplete at this point.
Correct. I haven't received anything other than some communications. And I sent them to John's way because they were coming to me before even going to him. So, but one had actually sent me a lot of their paperwork already in advance, but I said, you have to go through John first. The one architect on the Freeman Avery Road one is Colin Houston. And Medenbach and Eggers is doing the one on County Road 3.
All right, well, great.
So as soon as I get anything, I will let you know. If I hear anything from Sailor Mill, I'll let anybody know.
sounds
then-
good.
Can
All right,
move.
but as it stands right now, the meeting on the 4th is just going to be,
You mean the 18th?
the 18th is just going to be Flesh, a Shokan if they get you the paperwork back, and potentially Sailor Mill, but that's it.
Yeah, okay.
And I think Sailor Mill would be limited to reviewing, discussing their latest.
Right.
info-
Response to the
responses.
letter.
Right.
That's right. Traffic study, all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
I'll make
All
a
right,
motion that
thank
we
you.
close the
Need a
meeting.
motion, don't shut off yet.
Emotioning. I'll make a
second.
motion that we close the meeting.
Nick will second.
Okay.
All right. Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Good
Good
night.
work.
Night.
All right, take care.
Good night.